So we've been talking about whether a Kohen who's going to marry a woman needs to check out her ancestry to see whether she's perhaps from a family that's disqualified from marrying into the priesthood. And there are certain situations we learn where actually we don't need to check. We actually believe the status of we can see the status of the prospective wife's father. And yeah, we believe we don't need to check. And almost like a segue, as if it's sort of shape shifting, the Mishnah gets into another case where someone might or might not be believed. So we were shifting into cases of belief. Omer b'nizeh mamzer. Someone says, this son of mine is a mamzer. Really interesting statement. Effectively, he's saying that this son comes from an illicit union. That's presumably, I think we're saying his own illicit union. So very problematic statement because he's incriminating himself. He's giving evidence about the status of his son. He's actually related to his son. So we could say from a formal point of view, he's not qualified to give evidence about his son because they're related. And it's interesting that maybe for one reason or for the other, or maybe for other reasons, the Mishnah immediately rules Einon Ne'eman, he's not trusted. We don't believe someone if he shows up and says, this son of mine is a mamzer. And the Mishnah actually goes on, sort of drives the point home. For afilu shnehem omrim, even if they both say this must be a father and a mother from context. Well, let's go on in the Mishnah. We'll understand the context. But afilu shnehem omrim alha ubar sheba me'eha. Even if they say about the fetus inside her, this is a pregnancy. Mamzer who? It's a mamzer. Einan ne'emanin. They're not believed. Really interesting, as if we're trying to cut down on the number of mamzerim, or anyway, maybe there are all kinds of reasons why people might make that declaration. We don't believe them. But the halacha does not go according to the opinion in the Mishnah. So Rabbi Yudah is going to come along. Rabbi Yudah says they are believed. Rabbi Yudah, Omer, Ne'emanin, in the case where they both testify, Rabbi Yudah says they are believed. And the Rambam explains that actually this only applies to a child and not to a child who has children. In other words, they can. I think Rabbi Yudah is actually talking about both cases, but Rabbi Yudah is saying, okay, someone can disqualify his son, but not his grandson. And the Talmud learns this out in a drush, from a pasuk. So it's learned out in an obscure way. So the Talmud effectively turns upside down what we think of as the key ruling in the Mishnah. The Mishnah then goes on to talk about someone who, well, he is also believed, but he's acting, if you like, he's acting in a bivalent way. Mishnatan reshut lishlucho lekadesh et bito, v'halach hu v'kitsha. Someone gives permission to his agent. He appoints an agent to betroth his daughter. That is to give his daughter in betrothal. This must be a 12 to 12 and a half year old when the father can give her in betrothal. So he appoints the agent. The agent goes off and presumably works on the case. But then the father, the father goes and betroths her himself. So what are we going to do? Because it's axiomatic, and as we know, right the way back from the beginning of Yevamot, maybe because it's axiomatic through the whole Seder of Nashim, that the Mishnah is sort of repeating this now. It's axiomatic that she can't be married to two people. So what are we going to do? Im shelo kidmu, if his Kiddushin came first, Kiddushav Kiddushin. If his betrothal came first, his Kiddushin are Kiddushin, i.e. his betrothal is valid. Ve'im shel shlucho kadmu, if the Kiddushin of his agent came first, Kiddushav Kiddushin, his agent's Kiddushin came first. In other words, as soon as the first Kiddushin take effect, the second one effectively has no legal status. It has no legal value. If someone is already married or engaged, if someone has already received Kiddushin, effectively the act of receiving Kiddushin from someone else doesn't do anything. It's not a sin. It's just has no legal standing at all. Now, what if they don't know the timing? And of course, in the time of the Mishnah, they might not have had timing as accurate as the timing we have. If we don't know the time, if we don't know whose was first, they both have to give a get. And if they wish, one gives a divorce and the other marries her. And we've seen this halacha before in situations where two people think they might be engaged to the same woman. This was the situation of someone who engages his daughter, but he can't remember who to. And we said in that Mishnah that if the two men involved, if two men claimed to be involved, if they wanted, one could marry and the other could give a get. Now, but this Mishnah runs slightly differently because it then gives the mirror image halacha from a point of view of the woman, as if to demonstrate that a woman can appoint an agent. A woman can appoint an agent to accept Kiddushin, just as a man can appoint an agent to betroth his kind of under the age of 12 and a half daughter. So an adult woman can appoint an agent. She's an adult woman. Why not? Similarly, a woman who gives permission to her agent, to marry, to accept Kiddushin. And then she goes off and she betroths herself. She accepts Kiddushin from someone else. If her Kiddushin was first, then her Kiddushin are real Kiddushin. If her agent's Kiddushin were first, then her agent's Kiddushin take precedence. And interestingly, that the agent here is described in the masculine. Ein yadua, if they don't know, shneihen notnim get. If they don't know, both have to give a divorce. Im ratzu, echad noten get ve'echad kones. If they wish, one can give a divorce and one can marry. It's a mirror image situation, just as in the first one.